Good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 17th of February, 2025. Big shout out to everyone in the chat here. Who have we got? We've got Billy Kershaw in the chat. We've got Scott. We've got Vegan Elite. We've got Gunny in there. We've got Diz. We've got Janeway. Hi, everyone. We've got Leonardo's Embroidery Journey. We've got Gallifrey and Van. How you all doing this morning? If you'd like to join our friends in the chat here, all you need to do is just hit on that subscribe button and we're all good. Why is my hand disappearing? Look at that. That's weird. Oh, it's the corner of my monitor. I was wondering, it's a weird artifact that I put on another layer on top of me. Okay, so no censorship here of our wonderful plant who doesn't have a name yet. If anyone wants to name our plant behind me, feel free. I don't even know what type of plant it is. Says Kazabine says morning Graham. It's like Gin Stitches in there as well. Dave W. and others. So like I say, if you want to join them, just hit the subscribe button and wait for 30 seconds or a minute or something, and then you'll be able to join the chat. But don't be a troll or we will mute you. So you'll be able to watch, but you won't be able to say anything. Right, so we're going to be talking today about can Europe defend itself against America, and I'm going to try as much as I can to be completely original here and not just go on about the same talking points that we've been going on about for the last few weeks since the inauguration of Donald Trump. And so here's a nightmare scenario. 2030, it is Europe without the US. It is NATO without the US. The US have gone in what CNN are calling a stunning shift towards Putin. Obviously, the White House, or Donald Trump, has decided that he wants to go all in for Russian oligarchy because obviously he is attracted to fascism and dictatorships and oligarchy and all that kind of shit. And he wants to move away from the progressive values of Western Europe. Actually, I say Western Europe, it's all of Europe now, really, isn't it? The borders of Europe used to rub up against the borders of Russia. It was only moved to the Ural Mountains many years later by the Russians who wanted to be more European. So they went, "Oh, we're in Europe now. We're in Europe now." That's why the border definition between Europe and the rest of Asia is so poorly defined. I think that it should be essentially pretty much a straight line up from the Black Sea to the Baltic. But you know, that's me. Anyway, so yeah, moving because it's a peninsula. It's a peninsula. It's not a continent. It's a peninsula of Eurasia, even. So yeah, at the moment, Russia and China. There's still a little bit of tension between them, but there's no reason why that they aren't going to be warmer to each other in the future. China's one of the countries that sort of didn't really give a shit about the sanctions that were placed on Russia by lots of other countries. You're looking at post-Ukraine war, Russia would have plenty of time to rebuild its military, and without America in NATO, it'd be seen as weak. And then, Russia goes to seize control of the Arctic continental shelf, with China backing their claim to this, so they can drill baby drill, I guess. We could have Sino-Russian American forces all together, the three of them, America, Russia, and China under Trump, who, if he's still alive, he'll still be in charge in America at that point. And they land on, the Svalbard, even archipelago. It's a scenario that's been mapped out in the Financial Times as a possibility. And what's NATO going to do without America's backing? We're in we're backed into a corner. What do we do? Do we escalate? Do we and risk nuclear war? Do we cede Norway's territory to the Russians? This is the scenario that we could be in just a few years' time, thanks to Trump turning his back on his old allies, on America's old allies here in Europe, people who fought cheek by jowl with the Americans over successive world wars. He's done with us. He wants to be on, the side of fascism now, and it's pretty grim. It's pretty grim, the situation that we're finding ourselves in at the moment. And it's leading to the real possibility that Europe could be left on its own. We'll have 4 three major power blocks plus Russia. That'd be China, the US, and Europe. And Russia, like after Ukraine, if it's successful in Ukraine, it will empower Putin even more. One of the things that we always talked about at the beginning of the war with Ukraine is if Putin lost it, he was dead. That's why it was so important to him to feed thousands of lives a day into the meat grinder in eastern Ukraine, because if it wasn't them dying, it would be him dying. And obviously his life is worth more than hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers who have died, or soldiers fighting for Russia, I should say, because some of those people were just mercenaries from other countries, or people donated kindly from North Korea to come and die in Eastern Europe. And NATO might be expanding. We've recently taken on Montenegro, Macedonia, North Macedonia, famously Finland and Sweden, which were neutral for a very long time because they didn't want to upset Russia. They're both joined now, and obviously there's a stated intention of not just Ukraine but also Moldova to join the NATO alliance to stand against Russia and to stand against Russian imperialistic expansionism, which is what is happening now. You know, you've got two of these crazy bastards who are in charge, psychopaths, sketchy weirdo Putin, who's, you know, he's a leg rubber, isn't he? He's definitely a leg rubber. Sketchy weirdo Putin and high school jock, knobhead, brain, football player, but, you know, can't play football. Daddy paid for him to have a place on the football team. Donald Trump. So you've got these two, you know, huge factors on either side, and they both want the same thing, which is territorial expansion by the sounds of things. They want to start wars with all of their neighbors. They want, even though their countries are two of the biggest countries in the world, I mean, Russia is the biggest country in the world, it's not big enough for Putin. And the US is not big enough for Trump. They're not happy with the size of their countries. They are expansionists, just like Hitler was when he went over the border into the Sudetenland and into Czechoslovakia. And he said, oh, no, I'll stop there. Can't negotiate with fascists because they just lie. They just lie. You know, a deal means nothing to them. They will just renege on the deal at the first opportunity because they have no honor, they have no dignity, they have no respect for anyone but themselves. That's the narcissist creed, isn't it? You know, they just don't care. So NATO is expanding, but it is still heavily dependent on the USA. And Europe thus far has been all talk. I mean, we could have done a lot more to support Ukraine than we've actually done. We've supplied them with money, some military equipment that just kept their heads above water. But realistically, NATO could have gone in there. NATO could have gone in there and said, piss off Russia, and really started doing some damage to the Russian troops that were in eastern Ukraine. And I would have done that, you know. I'm not a peacenik. I'm not someone who runs around going, yeah, peace at all costs. I don't believe in peace at all costs, because a peace that has been put together badly just leads to more conflict down the road. You know, if someone invades another country and they get away with it, you're not going to have peace, because every other country, look, tell me I'm being mad here, but every other country with territorial ambitions looks at that. You know, China wants Taiwan and Russia wants the eastern parts of Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. What's to stop them now? America goes, all right, I want Greenland. You know, territorial expansion. Why not? You know, Russia got away with it. Russia got away with it. And don't forget, it was the 2008 invasion of Georgia, in which a third of the entire country of Georgia was ceded to Russia. South Ossetia and Abkhazia were taken by Russia with barely a murmur of dissent from the international community, who at the time were too busy concentrating on international terror being caused by people from the Middle East in a pot that had been stirred up in the first place by us in Europe and in the States. And so letting Putin get away with that empowered him to invade Crimea and Donbass in eastern Donbass in 2014, because of the lack of real international pushback for that. He interfered in our Brexit referendum. He interfered in American elections. He has interfered in countless elections now across the world. He's got his Wagner troops, or whatever they're calling themselves these days, all over, spread out all over the continent of Africa, causing trouble, civil dissent, political instability in about 24 countries in Africa. He's doing this on purpose because he wants to create refugees, because he knows that refugees destabilize the political process, destabilize democracy, because you can go, here's an easy scapegoat, all your problems are caused by refugees. So we could have done more, we should have done more, but we were hamstringed by the fact that the US were very cautious about this. Other countries were cautious, saying, but Russia's got nuclear weapons. They don't. I mean, it could be wrong, and it won't matter if I'm wrong because we'll all be dead. But if the state of what their military equipment was like when they started this war, if the nuclear weapons are like that, then they're defunct. They won't work anymore. There's a certain best before date on nuclear weapons, right? They need to be updated. They need to be upgraded. The nuclear material inside them needs to be, stirred the tanks of it or whatever you have to do. But the stunning fact that America spends more money on maintaining its nuclear arsenal than Russia spends on its entire military in a time of war, hot war with its neighbor, Ukraine. That should give you some idea about how Russia's probably not looking after its nuclear weapons. And I'm willing to take that bet because I feel like if they did have nuclear weapons that they could deploy, they would have deployed them by now. Shock and awe. Why not? And with Trump being the way he is, it looks like they'll use them anyway, given half the chance if they work, but they haven't used them yet. So, we need to get Europe its head out of its arse. So today, Starmer is traveling to Paris. They're having an emergency meeting with the heads, various heads of state, various heads of government, I should say, from around Europe. And, NATO plans to deploy 100,000 troops within a few days. Can it do that without America? The Baltics and Poland are most at risk and are pressuring NATO for some real action. But at the same time, Poland are saying we're not going to put any troops into Ukraine. So it's kind of like Starmer has said, we will put peacekeeping troops into Ukraine. Great. Good. That's a good first step. But are other countries in Europe going to join them? The UK military has been hollowed out by 14 years of shit management by the Tories, by the fact that they've been getting less and less money, putting less and less money towards the military for a very long time now. France's stockpiles are low. Germany's economy is not doing so well at the moment, so they're cash strapped and facing the real spectre of the AfD being elected later this week, and may take part in the government of Germany. Who knows? I think that all the other parties will gang up on them and not let that happen. But Trump is empowered right now. He's running rampant. There was recently a terrorist attack, or at least an attack by an Afghan asylum seeker, which really didn't help the forces that don't want asylum seekers to be attacked in this way, all the time. Not in this way, in the way that Nigel Farage wants to attack them, the way that all the demagogues around the world want to attack immigrants and asylum seekers and scapegoat them for anything. Really horrible timing with that, and it will change some minds. It will change some votes, and people will vote for AfD because they're like, we want security. People will take convenience and security over all other considerations. You make them feel like they're scared to go out because of X, Y, Z. You can basically manipulate them to do anything. NATO spending has gone up. It's shot up in the last just 3 years. It's gone up by 30%, but loads of countries are still not even meeting the 2% target set by Barack Obama in the late noughties. Or was it the early 10s? I don't know. It was set by Barack Obama. The UK has promised to go up to 2.5% of GDP to be spent on the military, but there's no timeline on that at the moment. Trump is asking for 5%. The Americans don't even spend 5% of their GDP on their military, and they spend a lot on their military. So I think that's a little bit fantastical. But whereas Macron has talked about a European army, and this has also been echoed by Zelensky, who says we need to have a European army. I think we should have a European army as well for defense. It's only just one step away from NATO. Not to say that we're all going to have one combined army for the whole of Europe, but a lot more crossover when it comes to integration of equipment and expertise. And so you could have, theoretically, you could have someone who's a German pilot flying in a British Royal Air Force plane, because they'll know how to fly it, because we're sharing equipment, we're sharing technology, we're sharing expertise. But yes, Germany and Netherlands are refusing to consider EU defense bonds, for example, to raise money, raise capital to fund expansion. And Trump has already threatened to encourage Russian attacks on NATO members. Don't forget, this happened a couple of months ago, who don't pay up. He thinks that we're all paying into one big pot, and that's not the way it works. It's a percentage of a country's GDP. So if it's a big country that has a very, very large GDP, obviously they're going to be putting a lot more money into the pot because it's a percentage. But Trump doesn't really understand any of this. Trump's a fucking idiot. So, he just says what his handlers tell him to say. But war isn't just tanks and guns. It's also logistics, it's transport, ammunition stockpiles and things like that. Absolutely critical at the moment. The US provides NATO with stuff like space cover. I know it sounds a bit mad, but like satellite coverage from space, intelligence, command structures, C-17 cargo planes, kind of irreplaceable. We need this shit. The F-35 fighter jet dominates NATO's air power, and without US backing, Europe is effectively screwed on that front. And the European defense industry, as I just touched upon, it's a disjointed mess at the moment. There's 172 different weapon systems compared with the US's 32. Do you see, like, more integration, more shared drills, people working together from different armies for the combined government, which is what NATO should be doing anyway. And don't forget, of the 32 members of NATO, over 2/3 of them are members of the EU at the same time. Nearly all of them are European. I think it's only the US and I think Canada's in NATO that are not part of the European continent. Obviously, it was set up as a bulwark against American, Freudian slip there, Russian expansionism. It was set up against Soviet expansionism 70 odd years ago. I mean, bloody hell, 75 years, I think, since NATO, 76 years, something like that, since NATO was founded. It was set up as a bulwark against Soviet expansionism, or just to say Moscow. Let's say Moscow expansionism. And Moscow has always had imperialist designs on taking chunks out of neighboring countries, as anyone in Finland can attest. But now we're entering a phase where we will be fighting not just alongside other, countries in our own continent, but also against perhaps America. And this is a real possibility. And I'm kind of sick to shit of people going, it won't be that bad. Here's the copium, Graham. Smoke the copium pipe. It's fine. And then Trump does something that we said a few weeks ago that he'll probably do. And he goes ahead and does it. He's going to ignore the courts. Yes, we said he was going to do that, but the courts will stop him. No, they won't. He'll ignore them. The Constitution will stop him. No, it won't. He'll ignore the Constitution. Look what's happening. QED. He's not doing the things that you want him to do because he doesn't give a shit. He's a psychopath. Wake up and smell the coffee. The only way we're going to get rid of Trump is not via conventional means, okay? Democracy is not going to save you. Democracy is not going to save America. I was talking about how, I felt that there weren't as many people as I felt there should be fighting the good fight in America, going out and protesting. But there's a very good reason why people aren't protesting in America. It is an insanely high surveillance state. You have Elon Musk now, who has access to millions of people's social security details, their Medicare, Medicaid. they will find people who have been on marches, and they've already done this and deported students who have, or threatened with deportation, students who have been on marches in universities who aren't American nationals, but they'll go after American nationals. If they've got your social security number, they've got your Medicaid details, they can fuck you up. They can say you went on this protest against Donald Trump, and so your nan isn't getting the healthcare she needs to keep her alive. This is what these sick fucks will do. And the people in America realize this, and this is why a few protests is not going to cut the mustard, and there's not going to be enough people going out for a protest that's actually going to frighten Trump enough into changing his ways. But let's talk about the idea. I mean, I was going to talk about sort of NATO and the fact that it's not really joined up at the moment. We need to talk about this a bit more, right? Because in Ukraine, there's over a dozen different NATO artillery shells, like a dozen. It causes chaos. We're talking about like one that's the slight different sizes. The American stuff is in imperial sizes. The stuff from Europe is in millimeters. There's no current one size fits all for a European army or for NATO as it stands at the moment. So can a European army work? Macron wants what he's calling strategic autonomy, but no one can really agree on how to do it. Hopefully something will come of the summit, the emergency summit that's being held today in Paris. Who leads? Is it going to be France? Is it going to be Germany? Is it going to be Poland? Infighting is going to be inevitable. Will it be a new force or just NATO without the US? There's no clear answers to that. Some countries would refuse to integrate their armies, fearing a loss of sovereignty. And the EU is already struggling to agree on joint purchasing agreements. Never mind building an army. Do you know what I mean? This is like where France and Germany say, we'll buy the same equipment, so we use the same size shells and everything. We have the same tech in our planes, on our ships. It's all different. It's all different for each one. And what Europe needs to do is they need to do a USB-C drive where basically they make it so that there's one size fits all for shells, for instance, like they have done with mobile phones. Just say, look, this is the standard across Europe for this particular bit of military kit. That's what the EU needs to do very quickly, because at the moment, these different standards are making it very difficult for a NATO to exist without America. And that's what a European army will be. It will be NATO without America. There's also the thing that I touched on last week. I hate to repeat myself. Sorry, Colin. But expanding NATO to include countries such as Canada. I think Canada's already a member, but someone looked that up. It's Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, Japan even. I mean, it's not outside the realms of possibility that Japan might find itself fighting with China over territorial claims in the China Seas. Do you know what I mean? Like, it could happen in the Pacific over countries that they feel, or areas, territories. China already, is in not a hot war, but in a cold war with about 7 other countries, Vietnam, Cambodia, Brunei, Indonesia, the Philippines, who all claim areas around the Spratly Islands and the South China Seas. They're not particularly friendly with their neighbors. America is not particularly friendly with its neighbors anymore since Trump got in. Russia is clearly not friendly with any of its neighbors. It keeps the ones in Central Asia, like Kazakhstan, on a short leash. And if they speak up against the madman in Moscow, then all hell will break loose. So you've got you've got those 3 countries, and the one thing that we've got going for us in Europe is, up to this point, we would work together. Up till Brexit, we were happy to work together for a common good, for the common good. We need to recapture that. We need to recapture pre-Brexit Europe. And one of the reasons why I'm desperate to get closer relations with the EU and rejoin as soon as possible is because I'm sick and tired of doing what's best for some dickhead who doesn't give a shit about politics, doesn't give a shit about other people, doesn't give a shit about doesn't even give a shit about themselves, right? I'm fed up of the needs of the village being centered around the desires of the village idiot. I'm sick of it. Stop listening to idiots. Stop platforming them. Stop putting them on TV to pontificate about bullshit. This is the real world. People are going to die. People are going to suffer. The next generation are fucked if we don't do something about what is happening in the world right now. And no amount of nebulous sovereignty is going to save the fucking day. We need to get real, and we need to tell people who are fucking dickheads, they are fucking dickheads, and ignore them. And say, look, you don't even get to enter this conversation. You don't know enough about it. I'm sorry, I am pulling rank on you, because I am sick and tired of having people go, well, yes, Graham, you might have a degree in politics and modern history from Manchester University, and you may well have visited every country in the fucking world, but what you don't understand is... And then they go on to repeat something that they read in the Daily fucking Mail. Can't be dealing with it anymore. The stakes are too high. This isn't some la-di-da shit. Whatever. We need strong leadership that will take us back into the EU as soon as possible. Not to say that, democracy is not an important part of that. Of course it is, because what's the point if we don't have democracy? But then you've got people in this country going, oh, we don't want democracy anymore. We don't want it. Now, I don't know if Keir Starmer is the decisive leader that we need right now. He seems very cautious in his approach to pretty much everything. However, and I will say this for you, he's quite ruthless. He is quite ruthless. Quietly, he's got that determination. Do you know what I mean? He's a little bit ruthless. He's a little bit like... you cross the party line, you don't vote for us on a 3-line whip, you can fuck off. Chucks them out the party for 6 months. 3 of them have come back, some of them haven't. But, and when someone's fucked up in his cabinet, that's it, gone. None of this negotiation, none of this, oh, did they really do something wrong of the Boris Johnson era? He's just like, nope, done with you, I'll drop you like a hot stone. So that's something that's positive, I guess. But... we are a little bit hamstrung by the fact that the Fash are doing so well in Germany right now. They're doing well in France right now. They've done very well in Italy. Obviously, Hungary has been ruled by Fash for the last 15 years with Viktor Orban. And so we need to have mechanisms in place that allow us to act decisively without having to ask permission of the Fash. And that's the that's the route we need to go down. And the fact that the EU hasn't banned Twitter yet blows my fucking mind. This is the EU that wouldn't allow threads to run in the EU because they said that the terms of service weren't decent enough. And I'm like, have you seen Twitter? Have you seen Twitter? Twitter needs to be banned. It needs to be banned, like, 8chan, 4chan. It's a cesspit of terrorism and abuse and bigotry. I mean, it's against democracy. It is. I mean, we can't be so... it's the paradox of tolerance again, isn't it? We can't be so tolerant of intolerance that we allow intolerance to take over, because intolerance is not tolerance of tolerance, and therefore you end up losing all your freedoms and all your rights and all your hopes and dreams for the future really do depend on us winning this ideological battle, or actually, might come to it, real battle, between the forces of democracy and fascism. And the thing I will always go back to as a positive on all this is that fascism always fails. It always fails. It might take a while, might take a few years, might take a few decades, but it always fails because it tries to subdue the human spirit. And you just can't. You just can't. You can maintain it for a little while, but then at some point people break. And once you create a society in which people are left with nothing left to live for, because you have destroyed everything that they loved, and then you take away the safety net so that when things go wrong for them, there's no social security, there's no healthcare, there's nothing there to grab them. They will turn on you in the most vicious way possible. And if you make millions of people with nothing left to live for, nothing to look forward to, nothing, no dreams or aspirations. Their dreams, their aspirations will turn to violence against the people who took those dreams, who took those aspirations from them. And I said before, Musk is going to have to spend the rest of his miserable, God-forsaken life looking over his shoulder. Of course he is. Of course he is, because he's the most hated man in the world right now. He's ruined the lives of so far, let's say hundreds of thousands of people, but he's going to ratchet up. There's going to be a point in the next few months, I reckon, in which millions of people are going to have had their lives ruined by Elon Musk. And at least, I'm not defending Trump in any way here, at least Trump was elected. At least people went, oh yeah, you know that rapist, you know that criminal, you know that felon, you know that rapist, yeah, I want him to be the leader. That guy with the little hands who mounted an insurrection against our Congress building, I want him. I want that guy. I want him in charge. No one voted for Elon. But yeah, so what happens next, right? So we must, first of all, massively increase spending on the military, which is a shit thing to have to say. We were looking forwards in the beginning of the 90s, when I was studying history and politics, to, the end of history. That's what people were calling it, the end of history, the fall of the Soviet Union. Everyone was just going to coalesce into democracies, and we're just going to get on with it. And everything would just be, funny cat memes and great parties and gigs and the flow of food and wine would never end. That was nice. That was a nice little setup we had there for a little while. But then, the bankers got too greedy, and then we had austerity as a result of that, because the Tories got in and went, do you know what would stimulate the economy? Poor people having even less. More desperation. That's what we need. More desperation amongst the hoi polloi. Obviously, the rich, the elites, the private school mafia, they never, ever, ever have that desperation, That's why they all become drug addicts and shit, like Musk is a ketamine addict. These Nepo babies, they don't know what it's like to be desperate. They don't know what it's like to scrabble around the back of the sofa for 20p to put in the meter, to put the bloody electricity back on in the middle of the night. Do you know what I mean? They have no idea what it's like to be in a room and be absolutely freezing, but terrified of putting the central heating on, because when the bill comes, it's astronomical. They don't care. They can pay it. They've got the money to do it. They don't care about losing their rights to travel and live around Europe. They got the money to pay for the permits. They got the money to pay for the visas. They don't give a shit. They got people to pay to queue up in the fucking embassies for them on their behalf to get their fucking visas. They don't have to do it themselves. They're rich. They don't care. They'll never know desperation. They'll never drive up and down the dock road in Liverpool looking for pallets to fucking burn. My God, pallets are really hard to break apart, by the way. Jesus Christ. Built like brick shithouses they are. Trump's, just to go back to NATO and stuff, we need to increase spending, but also military cooperation, right? Because with Trump's erratic behavior, it looks very much like the US is going to pull out of NATO and maybe join Russia. I mean, I hope American soldiers start brushing up on their Russian soon to talk to their allies. If something that we need to bear in mind is Putin is watching all this. If Europe falters, then he will push further. He'll take that as an opportunity. And NATO's survival, and therefore the survival of Europe as we know it, absolutely depends on whether Europe can defend itself with or without the US. And they're going to be really talking today, I'm guessing, at this summit, about how we defend ourselves without the US. And failure to act could lead to catastrophic consequences in the next decade. But here's the thing, right? Imagine a world without America, when we're no longer reliant on America for shit. A world in which we can create our own stories. We can defend ourselves. We are not reliant on American products. How about a European YouTube that we can use that pays us better? How about European Facebook? How about a European version of Twitter or B-Sky or whatever it's called these days? Why not? And we can use that instead. Why can't we do things for ourselves? For too long, we have relied on America, and necessity is the mother of invention. It's time for Europe to perhaps reinvent itself, reassert itself. We are a continent of well over 500 million people, nearly all of which are doing all right compared with the rest of the world. I know there's poverty in this, there's grinding poverty in this country, but compared with other countries in the world, especially around Asia and Africa, we're doing all right, surprisingly. And there is a safety net in place, which there isn't in other countries. There is an NHS in this country, no matter how shit your life has gone and how many medical problems you're having. The cost of that should be covered by the NHS. And we've gone from having one of the best healthcare systems in the world in 2010 with the best outcomes to the terrible stack of shit that we're having to deal with at the moment. However, Labour are quietly getting those waiting lists down. They are doing it. They are succeeding in that. Not as fast as some of us would like, yeah. And there is worries about more privatization of the NHS because we're still reeling. Reeling is not the right word. We're still suffering from the privatization, the private finance partnerships or whatever it's called. Back in PFI, was it? Back in the early 2000s when you had these 25-year contracts for hospitals where the contractors could literally charge anything they wanted. They could charge £300 to change a freaking light bulb, and there was no competition. It was not the contractor services were set back 25 years ago when these deals were put in place, and that they mean that, you know, even up to this day they're costing the NHS just a shit ton of money, and we're locked into these contracts. So yeah, there was a legal way out of it. Great, but I don't know if there is. But the point is that Europe could re-emerge stronger than ever before, better than ever before from all this. And good, you know, I'm kind of sick of the influence of America. I know more about the history of America than I do about Belgium. Do you know what I mean? Because Belgium doesn't make a movie every time it farts. Whereas America, oh my God, it makes a movie about everything. It makes a movie about making a movie about the thing that happened. Like, it makes movies about the good stuff it did. It makes movies about the bad stuff it did. It makes movies about itself all the fucking time. And I'd like to know more about other countries, thank you very much. Well, why can't we have something about, you know, what happened in the Belgian Congo? Why don't we make King Leopold's Ghost into a movie? Maybe it's already been made into a movie, but if it has, it's been made by Americans. We're just getting the American narrative, we're getting American stories. American culture absolutely dominates our society. We walk down the street, we see a Subway, we see a McDonald's, we see a Starbucks, and I don't want it. I don't want it. I'm sick of it. Let's turn away from it. Do you know what I like? Parisian coffee shops, coffee houses. Yeah, beautiful. That's what I want. Verandas on the pavement, sitting outside in the sun. That's what I want. The European experience. I want fountains. I don't want just everything to be a concrete fucking shopping mall or an out of town retail estate. I don't want that shit. That's American. It's American culture. I don't want fucking American culture. I'm sick of it. I've had it rammed down my throat all my life. Mickey Mouse isn't that cool. He's a squeaky voiced nonce. I don't like him. I'm not saying that Tintin's much better, but you know, at least Tintin goes on some interesting adventures now and again. I don't really know what Mickey Mouse does. At least Scrooge McDuck goes on interesting adventures now and again. But I don't know what Mickey Mouse does, but that's not the point. The point is that our geographic knowledge, our historical knowledge, our sociological knowledge of America is off the charts when compared with other countries. They have an outsized influence on the rest of the world, and maybe it's time to turn away from that. Maybe it's time for us to not just look into our own continent, but also look into our own past and really grapple with the age of empire and what it really meant to the places around the world that we went and invaded and took over and annexed and said, oh, this is ours now, creating an empire so big that the sun never set on it, for Christ's sake. Maybe we should look more into that. Maybe we should look into more our history. We talk a lot about, you know, Scottish history and Scottish culture, Welsh culture, Welsh history, Irish culture, Irish history, English. You know, what is English culture now? It's just basically, I'm not Scottish. That's not great. So culturally and also, you know, in terms of our ideals, I think that we could do with a little bit less Americanism and a bit more Europeanism in our outlook. I think that would really, really help. Okay, so I don't know why something's come up on my screen there, but I'm going to read some of your messages. Sorry for that insanely long monologue, but there's lots to get through and not much time, surprisingly enough. The next few days will be Starmer's most vital and important moment to show the world he's a serious politician standing up to Trump and Putin, says Roy. I believe you. I absolutely agree. But Patrick says it may be dangerous to be America's enemy, but to be America's friends is fatal, said Henry Kissinger, apparently, which is true. Mad Jesus, rule one in the situations is all the same. A free people's greatest weapon is always non-cooperation. Logic so simple, a fifth grader can explain it. Don't help people out to hurt you. Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I hope happens in America. Just massive, massive non-cooperation rather than people being on protests and stuff like that, which I we've had conversations about it. And I understand the reticence to doing that. I really do. Audrey says, I'm hoping that this will that at last this will force Europe to work closer, and we accept the need to work with Europe and hope the US comes back again. Yeah, indeed. The farmers, landed gentry will be on the streets crying to Farage forever. Yeah. Chris C says, though personally, I think if the wealthiest refuse to pay their fair share, then the state should seize their assets without notice. Yeah. There's a few things that I'd like to see, right? One of them is a ban on buy-to-let mortgages, immediate ban. You can't get them anymore. That's it. Another thing is a use it or lose it clause. And I think this would be really, really useful for getting rid of all the Russian oligarchs who own half of Belgravia in London. Is you say if a property is left abandoned for more than a year, you will be, served a notice to fix it up, and we will come and inspect the property within the next few months. And if it hasn't been fixed up, then we are going to compulsory purchase the property for a nominal fee, like fuck all. If you paid 5 million for that lovely townhouse in Belgravia, you'll be lucky to get $5,000 for it off the council. They're just going to take it. They're just going to take the bloody thing because they're going to have to pay money to fix the place up because it's been allowed to go into rack and ruin. Use it or lose it. That goes for commercial buildings in city centres. There's so many beautiful buildings in city centres, not just here in Durham, but in Liverpool especially, that are just derelict. No, use it or lose it. If you don't do something with it, the council take it over and give it away. They don't care. Use it or lose it. Invest money in that thing or that thing goes away. That's it. I'm sick and tired of people sitting like some disgusting smaug over all of our property in this country. People who aren't even fucking British, never lived here, buy property in London, and we've got a housing crisis. We haven't got a housing crisis. We've got a housing allocation crisis. There's enough homes. There's enough houses. But one person will own 50 homes because they got buy-to-let mortgages and let other people pay the mortgages on their homes. Something I bang on about a lot, I know. Great monologue, Graham, says Gillian Hope for the first super chat of the morning. Thank you very much, Gillian. Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot. I'll sort of give James O'Brien a run for his money. He only goes to about 20 minutes max, doesn't he? Before he goes to the ads. Genie Bottle, the law did not care when public services were sold off to private, so it should not stop. Reverse. Let's have a proper national interest for everyone except the super wealthy. I mean, it's a big thing that that privatization needs to be reversed, especially with the water. Water needs to be nationalized. The national grid needs to be nationalized again. For us, it can't be owned by a consortium from fucking Qatar and China, whoever fucking own it at the moment. The trains need to be nationalized. Anything that's a monopoly needs to be nationalized. Like, I think that the telephone infrastructure needs to be nationalized. Obviously, you can have different companies, but they rent their telephone masts, their mobile phone masts, they rent the optic fiber cables off a nationalized company that runs it for everybody, That's the way I think it should be. Why BT and OpenReach own all the cables? So what, can some OpenReach fucking shareholders make some money? What's the point of that? Make it so it's the government. And then we have tangible assets that can actually make money, We don't have to break even. They can make a little bit of money, which goes into the government's coffers. At the moment, none of that goes to the government's coffers. It all goes to shareholders who need a bigger yacht. So we need to do something about that. Leonora says, cancel my Audible subscription. We'll find non-US alternatives. We need to create, Leonora, we need to create these alternatives. That this is a golden opportunity now to do that and to create British or European alternatives to this American shit, or Canadian alternatives. And I would like to see more stories. I know sounds like a really weird thing to say right now, but I do worry about how much our culture is dominated by American culture. It's 99% of the stuff that we watch on TV is fucking American, you know? And I was struck by this when I watched Shogun last year. It's such a fantastic series, absolutely fantastic. And it was American, of course, but the fact that it really did absolutely, it was all encompassing into the Japanese culture of 500 years ago, whenever it was set. And that to me was more fascinating than the story that was happening. It was just feeling part of that culture, as an outside observer, but learning so much that I didn't know about Japanese culture. That was one of the real joys of watching that series. There's literally nothing I think I can watch about America that I don't already know. There's literally no American story that will surprise me in any way because I've seen it all before. If it's about America, I'm not talking about like Severance or Lost or something. I'm talking about like any show you see about America is going to be something that you already know about because you know so much about American culture. Because even if you're trying to actively avoid it, it's everywhere. Whereas the culture of France isn't necessarily everywhere in this country. The culture of Germany or Spain or Sierra Leone, in Africa or South Africa or Nigeria or other countries. And it's one of the reasons why I really, really, really appreciate immigration is because we get to hear other people's stories. One of the reasons why I love to travel, not just the food, it is to talk to people from other places, so hear their stories, hear their point of view. I mean, we have such a rich tapestry of life across nations, across the world. And we seem to just be absolutely fixated on the US. And this is going to be a watershed moment where we say, no, fuck off, Uncle Sam. We're sick of your shit. We're sick of your stories. It's the same thing over and over again. Stirring music, American flag. We all died for whatever. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. So there you go. Jovian, thank you very much for the £20 super chat. BT and OpenReach used to be the nationalized company. Yeah, Jovian, and it should go back to that. It should absolutely go back to that. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. I really, really appreciate that. It's a bit like when you do one of these shows and you rabbit on for like 40 minutes, like loads of details and all shit you've written down, and then it's like you look at your the money you get from advertising on these things, and it's like £1, and you're like, so thank you. I really, really appreciate that. British Airways was national company. Thatcher sold the family silver. Yeah, she did. I mentioned if you watched the show yesterday on the morning, what's it called, the Sunday roast with me and Alex Kerr. We were with Marina Perkis. It's a really good show. It's a really good episode. I watched it back when it went on, and was struck by the way that we are all still quite jovial. Do you know what I mean? We're not dogged. We're not like sitting there going, "Oh fuck, the world's going to end. It's all shit." We're not talking in like a monotone voice of just. We are all still got our spirit, and I think that's the one thing that separates us from the other side. Like they want to break our spirit. They think that by doing all the horrible things they're doing, it's going to make us go, oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, you do what you like. But I'm not like that. You're not like that. We stand up to bullies. We say fuck off. When people need to be told to fuck off, we tell them to fuck off. If someone's a C unit, we'll tell them they're a C unit. It takes a lot to push us that far. But I think America at the moment has pushed us that far. But yeah, we were talking about how... I referred to a show last week, a TLDR show, where they were talking about the fact that Britain's got no money. And one of the reasons is because of privatization. You look at the assets that our country owns, we've given them all away to private enterprise, which is just fucking mad, especially when it's a monopoly. I mean, what? But also, it's fucking mad because it means that we get less money going to the exchequer. Instead of that money going to the exchequer and bringing down our taxes, bringing up our public services, we're giving this money. We've got some money here, right? And instead of giving it to the government of our country, We're giving it to some foreign shareholders and going, here you go, take our money. And all that money's draining out of the country all the time at just an insane rate of knots. And this is one of the reasons why the UK is in the position it's in at the moment. Why we have such high taxation is because of privatization. And people don't make that link. People don't talk about it on TV. They go, "Oh, why is your energy bill so expensive?" It's because of fucking privatization. Why is your water bill gone up by 60%? Because of privatization. Why is there shit in the rivers? Because of privatization. There's no other reason for it. It's privatization and putting profit before people. Whereas if it was owned by the government or run as a government department or whatever, at least you would have a situation where you have running it as a non-profit, which I don't really agree with. I think they should make a little bit of profit, and that should go to the exchequer. That's it. Goes to the exchequer. And then they can use that money to fund our healthcare, to fund old people's pensions, bring them up. So, they're in line with other countries in Europe instead of being like the measliest pension that you could possibly get in this country, in this continent, pretty much. Mad Jesus, you keep saying Americans when I think you mean Magasphere. Please clarify. Well, I don't know. They live in a democracy. And he was democratically elected. So, I don't know. I feel like the people on the left in America just didn't take this seriously enough. I hate the fact that Biden just hung in there. I hate the fact that Biden didn't step down way, way earlier. I hate the fact that there wasn't a sensible primary challenge, to decide who was going to be the leader. I hate the fact that Kamala was given 3 months to try and run a campaign that they should have been running for 3 years. I hate the fact that Biden didn't use the opportunity of the Supreme Court telling him that anything he did as president was above the law to just get rid of Trump. That's what I would have done. Sorry, don't care. Just get rid of him. Because that guy will kill millions. And it's killing baby fucking Hitler here. Except you're not killing baby Hitler. You're putting a felon in jail so he can't run as president. You're putting him in a military compound so he can't even get a message out, can't even get a text message out. Nobody knows where he is. He's just been shuttled away by the Secret Service in America, and that's it. Anyway, no primary was a mistake. Well, there were so many mistakes on the left, and complacency. They thought that Trump was, because the left are just, and I try and rebel against this as much as possible, but God, we love our copium. God, we love, oh no, that won't happen. That won't happen. And for a side that generally has all the creatives on its side, it breaks my heart that there weren't enough people going, hang on, what if this happens? Oh no, it won't. He'll go to jail. He's committed so many crimes. Yeah, but what if a judge that gets picked for the case in Florida? What if that judge is a Trump appointee and a bit of a Trump fangirl? What might happen then? Let's put contingencies in place. And Biden put preemptive pardons on Dr. Fauci and on the January the 6th investigation committee in Congress. He gave his son a preemptive pardon because he realized that there's a good chance that Trump will put him into jail for life, and that his life wouldn't be that long because he would be Epsteined by Trump, something he's done before. So at least they thought that the Trump monarchy would be pretty grim. They obviously had some idea about how bad it was, but when I see headlines talking about how the Democrats have been like shell-shocked and stunned, and Trump does this stunning thing, and I'm like, why is it stunning? He said he was going to do all this shit, and somebody shows you who they are, fucking believe them. Yeah, I think that at the moment, and my mind may change on this, but I'm thinking at the moment that it's up to the rest of us to defend ourselves against America, and that is America. And the idea that the army's going to say no to Trump, please, come on. I mean, no offense to people who are in the army or have been in the army, but they're trained killers, man. You know, like they do what they're told. That's part of basic training, is not to think. It's just to do what you're fucking told. Because in a military situation, it's no good sitting there going, let's think about the moral implications of what I'm doing. No, no, no. You just got to do what you have to do. That's how a military fucking works. That's why they have basic training. So yeah, I think it's the free world against the fascist world at the moment. I think it's Europe and Australia and Canada, South Africa, basically versus the US, China, Russia, and Israel. That's it. It's me and you against the world, babe. But Europeans are nothing if not tenacious. So, you know, we need to dig in and make our own, make our own vision for the future of this planet and make it fucking work. Make it work, drive it, and make sure that, you know, we're in a position where we can make America come to heel. That'll be interesting, wouldn't it? Okay, so I'm going to head over to the Daily Express now quickly, and the newspapers in general, because I've got 3 minutes left, so quickly. Starmer sellout, dithering on defence leaves Britain exposed. He's literally not dithering. What are you talking about? He's literally going today to go and talk about defence with all the European leaders. Farmers driven to brink of despair. Farmers who have been pushed to the brink due to Labour's inheritance tax bombshell are calling a charity that works to avoid suicides in record numbers. So this is the idea that because the 500 farmers whose children are going to have to pay inheritance tax after the first 3.7 million worth of shit they get for free with no inheritance tax whatsoever, as a way of, you know, getting around the whole tax loopholes that allow wealthy landowners to just buy loads of land that they don't even bother to farm, just so they can give their money to the next generation without having to pay inheritance tax on it. I believe, is that how the Duke of Westminster bequeathed, what was it, £11 billion tax-free to his children? Yeah, that loophole needs closing, all right? I hate to sound a bit of hard arse here, but like, for 500 wealthy landowners to be affected by this, but only after the first 3.7 million that they get tax-free. And then it's only 20%. And then it can be paid back over 10 years. I mean, come on. The rest of us, it's 40% in our industry. Well, I mean, you know. But yeah, more support for farming and farmers. I'm all up for that. Absolutely. 100% up for that. But more support for wealthy landowners who take the piss. Private school mafia. Fuck off. Okay, PM will act as bridge to Trump during peace talks. European leaders hold emergency Paris meeting here. And this is Mikey Madison, who won BAFTA for her role in Anura, which is a cool movie, actually. You should watch Anura. It's quite funny. Recipe for keeping fit, dancing in the kitchen. Okay. Something about the joy of sex. Happy Ever BAFTA. This is Kyle Jenner and Timothy Chalamet. Ralph Fiennes, who doesn't like, he does not like wires. He doesn't like electrical cables. He doesn't like pylons. He doesn't want to see the pylons. Bury the pylons, says Ralph Fiennes. Hey, I tell you what, Ralph. I'm going to call you Ralph. I know you want to be called Rafe, but if you don't start banging on about pylons, I'm going to call you Ralph because I know you don't like it. I tell you what, mate. Why don't we just get you and your Hollywood mates to pay for the extra cost that it costs to bury the electric lines, and then you can keep your lovely vistas for as long as climate change allows. TV Victoria, please get screened. Victoria Derbyshire has urged women to get early breast cancer screening in a bid to save lives. The BBC Star is backing a new drive to boost numbers after figures shows a massive 46.3% skip their first X-ray at 50, which is bad. We've got a thing on the Daily Mail here. I cured my menopausal rage by taking magic mushrooms. For fuck's sake. Just the Daily Mail just has the most like crazed fucking misogynistic headlines, don't they? In the last few weeks they've been having these like feuds between mothers and daughters, and now we're talking about menopausal rage. Yeah, women who are going for the menopause, they're just all like crazy, so we can safely ignore them, I guess. Yeah, great. Feminism still has a long way to go. Europe in turmoil. Starmer flies into a storm. Anger as PM rejects call for urgent boost to defence spending ahead of crisis summit. I don't really know what you're talking about here. Who's furious with him? Who? Name some names. Name some people. We've got Dying Shows You How to Live from Ian Smith, who plays Harold Bishop in Neighbours there. Madge. And then we've got Adrian Brody with Mikey Madsen, who won Best Actress for Honora. We've got talks lay bare transatlantic rift over war in Ukraine. Indeed. Union ally of PM opposes refugee citizenship bar, which I oppose as well. And then we've got Demi Moore here looking very glamorous at the BAFTA Awards. I don't think she won. But I think she should have done. I'm sorry, but Honora was okay, but the substance was something else. It really was something else. Never watching it again, but bloody hell, what a movie. Starmer, I'm ready to put troops in Ukraine. This is on the Telegraph, surprisingly. I thought they would just have a hatchet piece like they normally do. AI prostate cancer test backed by Chris Hoyt is 96% accurate. That is fucking amazing. And one of the good things that AI can be used for. Hermer client plotted Manchester bomb. Move on. We got Here Comes the Sun. It's a story about the weather on the Star because they're obsessed with weather. Rafe finds Conclave and Wallace and Gromit win big at the BAFTAs. And Wallace and Gromit definitely deserve to because that was absolutely brilliant, that new film that they made. Vengeance Most Foul. We've got UK to join crisis talks on European defence as Ukraine is not invited to US-Russia summit, which is taking place in Saudi Arabia. I mean, Jesus, things are moving quite fast. There's going to be a lot to talk about this week. We've got stateside coming up this evening. We'll be tapping into this, talking to Mikey and Brenner about just what's going on in America, how Americans are feeling. And, it's all well and good for me to say, oh, they should be doing this, you should be doing that. But we'll talk a little bit about the reality on the ground. European leaders hold crisis meeting on Ukraine and wider defense plans. Bloc focuses on troops. Stage set for Trump-Putin summit. Starmer eyes transatlantic bridge roll. So, yeah, hopefully he can do that. And then rogue tactics amid talks of peace deal. Putin's war of fire and ice. Drone strike breaks steel at nuclear power plant with blazes raging inside dome. 100,000 people suffer in freezing cold after Kremlin bombs hit second power station. So they're actually hitting the Chernobyl power station. The sarcophagus around it that protects the whole of Europe from the radiation within. And then we've got the same picture of Demi Moore. I think they expected her to win. Looking very glamorous at last night's BAFTAs at the Royal Festival Hall. We've got a house building plan by Labour. Apparently is unachievable. The construction industry says it suddenly does not have enough workers to build 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years, despite Deputy PM Angela Rayner saying there is no excuse not to meet the target. Well, there is an excuse. We need more immigrants, and we shouldn't have Brexited. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that in a moment. Are you dismissing this woman's lived experience? No, I mean, I think it's fine that she found a way that she could help with her menopausal symptoms. It's just the Daily Mail for the last couple of weeks has had a story on its front page nearly every single day in some way demonizing women. Like in some way going, oh, women are crazy. Look at these women doing crazy women things. And it's a bit much. It's a bit like every single day, really. Do you need a story about the rift between a mother and a daughter? Do you need a story about a woman who cheated on her husband with another woman? It's like, really? Every day? What's going on here? Why? But yeah. Don't buy crap from Chinese comments blocked. No, it's obviously not. Just think about how you phrase what you're writing so it doesn't not show up. Also, there's top chat and live chat. This just shows the top chat, and then there's live chat as well, which doesn't filter out any of the comments really. Or at least it's not supposed to. George, although it could be argued that back in the 70s, many of our public utilities and services weren't being all that well run. Yeah, but George, that happened on purpose. The government at the time, like the 1980s, they ran down British Rail. They made it shit. I mean, in the 60s, they ripped up half the fucking rail tracks. So, I mean, that was one thing that happened in the 60s because it was competition to the motorways. But then later on, they wound these things down to make people accept privatization more, which is what they did with the NHS of the last 14 years. They've taken something that was working really, really well, all things considered. And then they made it work really badly, so people had bad experiences. So everyone knew someone who had died from MRSA in a fucking hospital or sepsis. Everyone knew someone who had to wait fucking 24 hours for a fucking ambulance. Someone knew someone who had been waiting for 2 years for a knee operation. Like, they made it shit so that when they go, oh yeah, we're going to get the private enterprise in to sort this out, people will put up less of a fight. Because they can just say, well, it's not working the way it is. Yeah, it's not working because the Tories don't invest in this stuff. And it's the same with the nationalised industries that we used to have. The Tories wound them down because they wanted to privatise literally everything. And I think with the only country in the world, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Bolivia does it as well, but I think with the only country in the world that has its water privatised. I mean, seriously. Anyway, NATO allies produce common caliber ammunition, but often do not share ammunition, says one angry pagan. Yeah, we need to work on all that stuff. We need to work together and build a better, stronger, more independent Europe, and a Europe that knows its history, and a Europe that celebrates, the good things we did and lets people know about the bad things we did. Which is something that they don't want to do. The fascists don't want to do. They never want to admit that bad things happened in the past, do they? They want the past to be all forgotten about. Isn't that what Musk said to the fucking AFD thing that he came? Anyway, that comment was in a sequence. Oh, sorry, mate. The higher numbers make it harder to fund with the same. The higher numbers make it fund to the same pounds, though. Yeah. One Pagan says the 70s was shit because of OPEC. Also, brown and orange. Everything was brown and orange. And there were raisins in your cook at home curry kit. Ugh. No. Blue Badger. I went to standardized forms in the EU and NATO equipment, such as matched silhouette on helmets, and some vehicles run international changeable parts. Yes. That's the ideal. That's what we want to head towards. Measles outbreak in America, bear flu crossing species, the continent with as well, says Leonora. Yeah, before I go, God, I've overran today. Before I go, I just want to mention that because there's a huge outbreak of measles, and also there's this worry with bird flu. And I saw someone was talking to a MAGA, a red hatter, a mad hatter, and they were saying, "Oh, listen, that the bird flu is infecting all these birds, and it's crossed into cats. So keep your cats in. The MSN don't want you to know this, but just be careful." And they were saying that because they knew that the Trump supporters will go, "Oh, the MSM, yeah, they're keeping something from me. I have secret intelligence about what's really going on." Yeah, because if they found that out through the MSN, they wouldn't believe it. So this is a better way of doing it. Yeah, if you don't want all your MAGA supporting relatives to cark it from bird flu. Right, so I'm going to head off now. I'll be back tonight at I think 9:00 tonight. I think we're doing it a little bit later, but look out for it. This evening we'll be doing Stateside with Mikey and Brenner, so please join us for that. And until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Really, really appreciate that. And yeah, give us a like. Give us a like. Look what I've got. I've got a little like thing. Look at that. Give us a like on the way out. Fun. Okay, so until next time, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.